The Nicaraguan Revolution, 1961 to 1990. In the heart of Central America, a revolution was born from injustice, sustained by ideology, and defined by both hope and bloodshed. This is the story of the Nicaraguan Revolution, 1961 to 1990, a war of liberation, power, and survival. It is also the story of the Sandinistas, the fall of a tyrant, and a Cold War battleground that still echoes today. Welcome to the channel. Today, we dive into one of the most pivotal and controversial episodes of the 20th century Latin American history. The Somoza dynasty, 1936 to 1979. Before the revolution, Nicaragua had been ruled for over 4 decades by the Somoza family that ruled with an iron fist, and was a US-backed dictatorship that controlled the economy, the military, and the political system. Anastasio Somoza Garcia seized power in 1936 and established a despotic dynasty. His sons Luis and Anastasio Somoza Debayle continued the regime, amassing wealth and repressing dissent through the feared National Guard. By the 1960s, inequality was rampant. The Somozas owned vast estates while the poor, especially rural peasants and urban workers, suffered under corrupt, authoritarian rule. The rise of the Sandinistas, 1961 to 1979. On July 19, 1961, a small group of Marxist-Leninist revolutionaries founded the Sandinista National Liberation Front, FSLN, named after Augusto Cesar Sandino, a Nicaraguan rebel who was murdered by Somoza in February 1934 and who founded of the militant group EDSN and resisted the U.S. occupation in the 1920s and 30s. For years, the FSLN operated as a guerrilla force, fighting in the mountains and building a network of support among students, workers, and peasants. One of them was a young radical named Daniel Ortega. Then came December 23, 1972, a devastating earthquake struck Managua, resulting in about 10,000 deaths. International aid poured in, but much of it was embezzled by Somoza's regime. Public outrage exploded. By the late 1970s, the revolution gained momentum, uniting leftists, centrists, and even parts of the Catholic Church. The fall of Somoza, 1979. On January 10, 1978, the assassination of the popular journalist and publisher, Pedro Joaquin Chamorro, had galvanized the opposition. The Sandinistas launched a final offensive. Workers went on strike, cities revolted, and even children fought in the streets. On July 17, 1979, Anastasio Somoza Debayle fled the country. 2 days later, the Sandinistas entered Managua, and the revolution triumphed. But the real struggle had only just begun. The Sandinista rule, 1979 to 1990. The new Sandinista government implemented sweeping reforms, including land redistribution, literacy and health campaigns, and nationalization of major industries. It gained admiration worldwide for its commitment to social justice. But it also moved closer to Cuba and the Soviet Union, sparking Cold War fears in Washington. The United States, under President Ronald Reagan, branded the Sandinistas as a communist threat. Therefore, the U.S. funded the Contras, anti-Sandinista rebels. Nicaragua became a proxy war, Soviet-backed Marxists versus CIA-backed militants. A decade of chaos followed, death squads, embargoes, and 30,000 dead. The Contra War and the human cost. The Contra War devastated the countryside. Villages were attacked. Infrastructure was destroyed. Tens of thousands were killed and displaced. The CIA supported the Contras, an operation that led to the infamous Iran-Contra scandal in the United States. Internally, the Sandinistas faced criticism for authoritarianism, censorship, and repression of political dissent even as they continued to deliver social programs and resist U.S. aggression. Nicaragua had become a battlefield in the global Cold War. The 1990 elections and aftermath. Exhausted by war and economic crisis, the Nicaraguan people went to the polls in 1990. In a surprising outcome, Violeta Chamorro, the widow of the slain journalist and candidate of the U.S.-backed opposition, defeated Daniel Ortega, the Sandinista president. It marked the peaceful end of the revolution and the first democratic transfer of power in Nicaragua in decades. The Sandinistas stepped down, though Ortega and his party would return to power in 2007 under very different circumstances. Legacy and reflection. The Nicaraguan Revolution was a story of liberation and devastation, of ideals pursued and power contested. It gave a voice to the oppressed and challenged imperial dominance. But it also exposed the costs of ideology, militarization, and foreign intervention. Even today, Nicaragua remains divided in how it remembers those turbulent decades. Revolution is never clean. But history demands we remember it. So, what do you think? Was the Nicaraguan Revolution a triumph or tragedy? Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more historical documentaries and untold stories from around the world.